A control for cancer is known, and it comes from nature, but it is not widely available to the public because it cannot be patented, and therefore is not commercially attractive to the pharmaceutical industry. Dr. John Richardson, MD, had a cancer clinic, a very thriving cancer clinic up in the San Francisco area in the 70s. He was a good friend of ours, and occasionally I would get together with Dr. John and we'd sort of get out of town. He was not having particularly good results in treating cancer patients, pretty much the same story as most doctors. He had been introduced to this substance. It was called Laetrile, amygdalin. That's the chemical name of it. Amygdalin, in its purified and concentrated form, is called Laetrile. And he went from a terrible loss rate, I guess you would call it that way. He was losing most of his patients that he was treating with cancer. He went from that to a high success rate almost overnight by using this substance. It has 4 components. 2 of them are glucose, or sugar. One of them is cyanide, and the other one is benzaldehyde. So we're talking about cyanide in a molecule that is not gaseous at all, but it's locked up with benzaldehyde and it's locked up with glucose. Amygdalin, it's in your food, and it's going through your bloodstream, and it's covering your whole body, and if it comes to a cancer cell, wouldn't it be great if you had some mechanism whereby you could give it a message and say, okay, dump your cyanide there. The only thing that will release that is an enzyme, and it's called beta-glucosidase. That enzyme is found in cancer cells. It's part of the body's natural mechanism to control this healing process. It works fine as long as you're eating foods that are rich in this substance.
We're talking about the products that we have consumed for centuries and centuries and centuries. There is no doubt that there is an adaptation. They are intrinsically more compatible with our bodies.
So the question is, how come your doctor doesn't know about this? Or worse, how come your doctor tells you to run for your life, stay away from this because it's quackery, and he thinks he's doing you a favor by telling you that? Why is this? How did this come about? The takeover of the medical industry was accomplished by the takeover of the medical schools, and the schools literally were taken over by the financial interests that put up the money. This story led me, of all places, to Nazi Germany. Pre-Nazi Germany, actually, was the origin of some of the world's greatest cartels in the pharmaceutical and chemical industries.
It is important to note, Nazi Germany's war effort was largely supported by 2 organizations, one of which was called IG Farben. IG Farben produced 84% of Germany's explosives, and even the Zyklon B used in the concentration camps to kill millions.
So it's the Farben cartel that we're talking about. They came to the United States and they formed strategic partnerships with major pharmaceutical companies. And these cartels became a tremendously powerful and influential economic force in the field of medicine. Well, the people that we're talking about, Rockefeller and Carnegie in particular, came to the picture and said, we will put up money. The donors said to the schools, we're giving you all this money. Now, would it be too much to ask if we could put some of our people on your board of directors? Well, when somebody's offering a starving, struggling school a couple of $1 million, the answer in many cases is yes, we'd be honored to have these people on our board of directors. They skewed the whole thing in the direction of pharmaceutical drugs. The doctors from that point forward in history would be taught pharmaceutical drugs. Those schools that did not accept those terms did not receive the money, and they generally fell by the wayside, and today you probably have never heard of them. So now the average doctor goes through school, he gets a great education, he has to be really smart to get through it, he learns all about drugs, he doesn't know too much about basic nutrition, but they sure know their drugs. And if you go to your typical doctor today, I don't care what it is, chances are you're going to walk out of there with a prescription. Young doctors who have gone through this process and they see what pharmaceutical drugs are doing to their patients. They see that they're not helping, and then they see that they're causing more problems than they're curing, and they are rebelling, and they're beginning to ask questions.
My name is Gwen Olson, and I am the author of Confessions of an RX Drug Pusher. I'm a 15-year veteran of the pharmaceutical industry. I would like to dispel the myth that the pharmaceutical industry is in the business of health and healing. They are not in the business to cure cancer, to cure Alzheimer's, to cure heart disease, because if they were, they would be in the business of putting themselves out of business. And you need to get yourself educated and understand that there are options, and those options are much more effective than drugs.
It wasn't very long before people were coming from all over the United States, and in some cases even from Europe, to be treated at the Richardson Clinic. He'd gotten into trouble with the local medical authorities because he was using an unapproved substance in the treatment of his cancer patients. The hospital administration contacted him and said, "You have to stop using this material because it is not approved by the FDA." And he said, "Yeah, I know it's not approved, but it works." They said, "We don't care whether it works or not. It is not an approved substance and you're in violation of the law."
The FDA passed a law, they wrote their own law, and it says only a drug can be used to treat, prevent, or cure a disease. Which means if I say an orange cures scurvy, I go to prison. That's illegal in America.
If there is a medicinal claim, which means that the product is used to assist, support, correct a particular disease or disorder, you immediately come under medicinal law.
So hold on a second. That means that even if you had a proven natural remedy, a natural cure, if you like,
you're not allowed to sell it or promote it.
Having a product and making a cancer claim is one of the best ways of finding yourself behind bars.
The pharmaceutical industry makes 5 to 6 times the amount of money as any of the other Fortune 500 companies in the United States of America. They are not going to easily or readily give up that income. I spent 15 years in this industry. I was one of the best, but I'm here to tell you that the industry has run amok.
I exposed how the pharmaceutical companies were basically fraudulently lying to people about the research, about the efficacy and safety of their drugs.
You could argue if you are a drug company and your business is really about selling the maximum number of pills to the maximum number of people, why on earth would you want people to die prematurely? You actually want to extend the lifespan. What you're really interested in is what we call morbidity, sickness. What those products generally do is they block particular metabolic pathways or receptors in the body. They interfere with metabolism.
We know now that toxicity, primarily from drugs, both non-prescription and prescription, cause disease. And we know the drug companies lie about the efficacy of their drugs and the safety.
And we are in fact considered a human commodity. Our loved ones, our children, our elderly are considered cash cows that are preyed upon by pharmaceutical reps such as myself, who are encouraged to go in and build market shares without thinking about the consequences to patients, without knowing the misinformation that they are distributing, without being aware that the clinical data has been contrived, or that the patient populations have been cherry-picked, or that the side effects have been minimized and reported in such a manner that it doesn't present the information correctly. You're never going to get that kind of fair, balanced information as long as pharma is funding the major TV stations, the advertising that supports those television stations, the major journals, and all of the advertising that supports the major journals. We have got to take our power back, and we have got to start making the pharmaceutical industry accountable for their actions and for the defective products that they're putting on the market. Once you start down the road of taking one prescription drug on top of the other, you will be a lifelong customer for the pharmaceutical industry, and your choices will be truncated. So I would like to ask you to please self-educate, be proactive, and share the information with others. The next victim could be someone that you love. Thank you.